Welcome to the 910 Opinion. And here's your host, Willie D.
What is up, everybody? This is the 910 Opinion Podcast, and I am your host, Willie D. I hope everybody is out there. I hope everybody out there is doing well. I am. I'm doing great because I have a very, very special guest. This guy that you see here, this man here, this professional here, he is none other than Mr. Claude McKnight. And I will let him introduce himself as far as what he does. But I'm not going to tell you who he was with, but I'll tell you some of the people who he has worked with. And this is an impressive list. I'm just going to name a few. He has worked with the likes of Ray Charles, Whitney Houston, Don Henley, Al Jarreau, the Manhattan Transfer Project, Johnny Mathis, Brian Mcknight, Marcus Miller, Joe Sample, and more recently, because most of my audience is from TikTok, everybody sent me the video of your group performing with Michael McDonald, because I'm a big fan of the Doobie Brothers and Michael McDonald. And they were like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Of course I have. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to none other than Mr. Claude McKnight. Sir, I appreciate you for coming to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well, and it's my pleasure. Thanks for reaching out.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to let everybody know. So your group is the world-renowned Take Six. Explain to everybody who, because a lot of my audience is not into gospel music, but if you can explain, what is Take Six?
So Take Six is primarily a vocal group. We're when I say primarily, I mean we're fully a vocal group. Mm-hmm. We do mostly acapella, which is without any instrumentation other than the human voice. Even though we have done some things with other instruments. We are a gospel group / spiritually based group / R&B / pop. So we do a little bit of everything, but everything, the foundation of what we do can be considered gospel.
Okay. And where was Take Six started? Who was the founder of Take Six?
So I started Take Six as a freshman at Oakwood University in Huntsville, Alabama. I was 17 years old, mm-hmm. and started what was a quartet at the time. We were basically doing what could be considered like barbershop style quartet music,
right?
Or doo-wop, for people who are old enough to remember what doo-wop sounds like. And the official story, which is true, is that we were rehearsing in a large bathroom because most people know that you sound really good in a bathroom,
that
even
reverb.
If you can't sing well.
The
reverb. That's right. The echo, the reverb.
Yeah.
And Mark Kibble, who's in the group now,
mm-hmm.
added a fifth part to what we were doing one day and subsequently joined the group, started arranging for us. We added one more person and became a sextet, meaning we were the only sextet on campus. And there were a lot of different groups then, and mostly trios and quartets and stuff. But because we had 6 people, we were able to do extended harmonies, which lent itself to being a lot jazzier in the approach. So that worked for us because we all had jazz backgrounds. I'm a trombone player.
Oh, really?
We all play instruments. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So I grew up in junior high and high school and in college playing in jazz bands.
Nice.
So we just started doing what we were able to do with our wind instruments and piano and stuff with our voices. So that's the basis of who Take Six is.
Okay. And what I want to do real quick, if you don't mind, I want to play the first song that I heard when I was 12 years old. It's off your second album, the So Much mm-hmm. to Say album. Mm-hmm. This, for the listening audience, this is the first time I heard Mr. Claude McKnight and his group Take Six. I'm going to play a clip.
Gotta make this quick, gotta make it stick. Better begin, so listen up, won't you give it in to hear my hip communicate. So much to say, so little time. Nobody's really having fun, so taking this along. Only got about a minute, ain't apropos. Not too many seconds in it, and I'm just fair. I tried to quit, so I'm unaware of this. This is when you had a story, it just happened. No time for insensitive chatness. So much to say, so little. If you can be attentive, don't be preventive. Forgive, forget, please try. The rule's not exempted, but it is redemptive. A form never reach your life, so much to say, so.
And to go back to what you were saying about the jazz, if you just listening to that, that's jazz.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot going on in what you just heard. A lot, yeah.
And what amazed me about your group is, so that album came out in 1990, I think, right? 1990. So right around that time, Boys to Men were, coming out. They were coming out. And I used to get in arguments with my friends. Say, well, Take Six can't harmonize better than Boys to Men. And I was like, wait a minute. And this was the same time I had gotten into band. And so I used to, I had to actually use my brain, because I'm like, wait a minute, these guys Boys to Men, they're not using these type of chords in their harmonies. And nobody understood that around me, because I was in band and I knew how chord structures work. I'm like, they're doing major, minor chords and everything with their mouths and vocals, and then they're doing these bass runs. And Michael McCrary can't do this with who's the bass guy? Alvin Chia, right?
Alvin Chia, right?
I'm like, they can't do this. I mean, they were accented by all the music, from Babyface, but they weren't doing these type of harmonies. Did you guys ever hear like people comparing you to Boys to Men? And
so we never heard that.
Okay.
I think other people would obviously make the comparison between all of the vocal groups. I think what happens is a lot of times the public won't understand, and this isn't a dig on anybody, but it's hard for most people to hear past 2 or 3 part harmony.
Right.
So when you hear anything that is more than that, or how do I say this? Boys to Men will do 3, maybe 4 part harmony, especially when Michael was in the group.
Right.
We do typically 6 part harmony. If your ear can't hear those extra parts, it all sounds alike.
Right.
Because you can't really differentiate. You may know for some reason that something about Take Six sounds different, but you don't know why.
Right.
It just sounds thicker, and I think because Boys to Men has all of their arrangements and their productions are R&B based, and with all of the instrumentation, I think that for most people's ears, it may sound, for lack of a better term, better to them.
Right.
Because it's more palatable to what it is they're used to hearing. With Take Six or other artists who do a lot of extended harmonies, it's almost like you eating a dessert and knowing what your favorite dessert is, and then getting something that is richer in taste and not knowing, because your palate isn't used to it yet. So you're like, I don't know if I like that.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the perfect analogy. That is the perfect analogy. And with that, I want to ask you, so who writes for the group? Is it a collective effort? Does one person take stuff and then they bring it to the group? How does the writing process work?
So the writing process is such that we all write.
Okay.
We've all been writers from the very beginning. But the primary arranger, which is a different animal, is Mark Kibble.
Okay.
Now the arranger is kind of like, so Babyface is a writer and producer and arranger. So when you hear Babyface songs, they have a vibe to where no matter the artist, you can tell that's a Babyface song.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And a lot of times that's because of the production and because of the arranging techniques, let alone the fact that his songs a lot of times sound alike. And that's a great testament to how creative he is, that he has a sound.
He has a sound.
I think Take Six has a sound, and that sound comes from the arrangements, and primarily from Mark Kibble's his sensibilities when it comes to harmonies. So when you hear what we do, you can hear other close harmony groups, and you can say, I think that sounds like Take Six, but then you hear Take Six, and you're like, oh, that's Take Six. So that's primarily from the brain of Mark Kibble.
Okay. And so I don't know if you saw this news recently, but Hall & Oates, they're a little bit, there's a rift of sorts. And with 6 of you guys being together for so long, I'm not sure if Cedric is still with the group. I didn't see him on the list. I knew he was, and not that there's a rift, but how hard is it to keep a group of 6 together for so long?
So that is a great question. And it is the conundrum of every single group that has ever been together.
Yeah.
Because it is very, very hard to keep any group together. When I say any group, that could be 2 people.
Yeah.
as you just said, Hall & Oates is two people,
Two people.
and you see what's happening there.
Right.
I think the blessing for us is that we never, ever allow for disagreement to fester.
Okay.
We try to make sure that if there's going to be a fight or a disagreement or whatever, we get it out and we talk about it, and we do it in a way that there is always respect underneath it.
Right. Right.
Because when you disrespect each other or have no respect for each other, this is what ends up happening in the long run. A lot of people don't realize that as amazing a band as the Beatles were, they were only together for 10 years.
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
It's really hard to keep a group together because sometimes it's not just the low times that break you up, it's the high times.
Right. Right.
How do you deal with success, not just failure? How do you deal with disagreements? How do you work through adversity? That's the mark of who you really are. And I think Take Six has done really, really well in the 30 plus years we've been together.
Wow.
Is to make sure that we get that stuff out and we deal with it.
And as you said, deal with success. Listening audience, you can see behind him there are some awards, some very prestigious awards. There are Grammys. What else is in that case behind you?
We've got Dove Awards. We've got Stellar Awards. So we've got a ton of awards. And I was mentioning earlier, it is a little bit of a flex.
Yeah.
I like
flex
having them there. But also, it is a reminder that we have worked hard in this business to try to achieve a standard of excellence.
Right.
And whether or not we had won any awards or not, we always want to impress each other with being as good and as excellent and as creative as possible. And if that is rewarded, then that's icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But we do it so that when we're done with the project, whether anybody likes it or not, we're like, yeah, we did what we just did.
That's amazing. How was it? What did your first Grammy? I guess what was that first Grammy award? What album did that come with, and what year do you remember winning that in?
So the first two Grammys came on our first album.
So much. Take Six.
That was the Take Six debut album. Okay. Yeah, and that was released in 1988. So that means that we would have been at the Grammys in, I guess, February of '89.
Okay.
And it was surreal because we were nominated for 3 Grammys. And what a lot of people don't know, but every once in a while in an interview, what I will tell them is the one that we didn't win is my favorite nomination of all time because we were nominated for Best New Artist.
Really?
Oh yeah, and that's the year. If you have any listeners who are of age.
Oh, they're Gen X.
Okay,
most of them are Gen X.
Yeah, so that year Tracy Chapman won the actual Best New Artist category. But the reason why it's my favorite is the fact that you can only be nominated once for that. And in that category, there's only like 4 or 5 people.
Right.
So out of everyone new that year, you're one of the ones who's Best New Artist.
That's right.
And at the time, we were so new that I think when that Grammy Awards happened, we had sold less than 100,000 copies. And back in the day, artists were selling 500,000, a million, 5 million, 10 million albums, and no one knew who we were until that Grammy. And when we won those first 2, our career took off.
As it should have. And from there, now, I'm going to backtrack a little bit to what you said, what we were talking about as far as longevity. Most people don't understand that you guys, when you go on tour, you're together more so than some couples who are married. Like you're eating, sleeping together for months at a time. And some of the conditions, depending on, your level of success, aren't the best at all times. You don't always have the nicest hotel rooms. In the early days, what were the conditions like with traveling and being on tour?
So the great thing for us was, remember now, since we had a lot of success right away, our very first touring experience was with Al Jarreau.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we You know, we were treated very well. You know, we
Really?
did our first U.S. tour with him, and we were on tour in '88 and '89 with him. We were opening for him. We would come out during his set at times. He would join us during our set. It was an amazing time. We played places like the Hollywood Bowl, and
Wow.
you know, it was a really really cool time. So our travel from the very beginning was very cool. And I can say this though. I think like the very first time we went out, we shared rooms and stuff. We never did that again. We're like, no, 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 that's not going to work. I thought we were trying to, you know, save money or whatever. We're like, no, no. Because like you said, if you're going to be together all that time,
Yes. Yeah.
you need, you know, your alone time on the road. You need to decompress. You need to have, you need to be fresh enough so that when you do come together, which is all the time,
All the time.
you're bringing the best of you.
Okay. Okay. So in the early days, I guess a quick question is, who discovered you guys? How did you get signed?
So we, like I mentioned, we were in college, and what happened was Huntsville, Alabama, where we went to school, is only an hour and a half to 2 hours from Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
And most people, I think, know that Nashville is considered Music City.
Yes, it is.
So, and a lot of people think that is just country music, but it is not, and it has never just been country. So everything you can think of is in Nashville, from hip hop to rap to R&B to jazz. There's venues and labels for all of that. So what we did was we reached out to someone we knew who in Nashville, and we asked her, what do you think about us doing a showcase? And at the time, a showcase was basically where you invite a whole bunch of people into this room or whatever. You see, you know, you have no idea who's going to come, but you perform for them, however long. And so she put this thing together. It was at this Christian bookstore called Koinonia on Music Row in Nashville. And the story is she invited about 250 people, and about 7 people showed up. And we were like, oh my God. But the testament for that, and that I tell young artists, is always be ready.
That's right.
Because we did our whole show. It didn't matter who was there. And when we were done, this gentleman comes up to us, and he hadn't even been invited. But because it was Music Row, he walked over from his office to see what was going on. And he said, my name is Jim Ed Norman. I'm the vice president of Warner Brothers Records. This is the country music division of Warner. He said, I love what it is I just heard. I would love to sign you guys. I have no idea what we would do with this music, but I love it. And we were literally in the studio 20 days later recording our first album.
Wow.
And none of that would have happened had we not been ready and not crestfallen when we only saw 7 people out there. Now, here's the other thing that I didn't mention. We invited all of the Christian record labels. We were like, let's get all these people there. And I didn't even know this until years later. Some of the other guys said that they saw them come and they left. They're like, yeah, nah, we don't want to see this.
Well, who did they think they were looking for?
I have no clue. But again, just be ready.
Right.
You know, be you and do that to the best of your ability. And if you are unique enough and continue to press the excellent button, hopefully you will find a venue. And that's what we did.
That's incredible. Well, let's talk about the first studio. Well, I'm assuming this was that your first studio experience?
Yeah. No. So here's the funny thing. So that guy, Jim Ed Norman, came because he had signed a writer named Mac McAnally, who was a country writer who had done some work down at that studio in Huntsville, Alabama, where my group at the time, which was called Alliance, which became Take 6, had done this really small custom project. So this guy, Jim Ed, had heard a piece of a song that we had recorded years before and walked over thinking, I wonder if this is that group.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
So we had done some studio work in Huntsville. In fact, on my TikTok lives, every once in a while, I will play an Anita Baker song called Giving You the Best That I Got.
Oh, yeah.
That me and a couple of the guys who were in the group sang the original demo in Huntsville, Alabama. Yeah. So we had done studio work for a while. So we were used to that, but not really used to what would become the take 6 way of recording, which had to happen through experience.
And in the studio, how do you guys record? Now, and this is me being, I'm a drummer. I'm a drummer. I play sax and I'm a drummer, but I'm mostly a drummer. And but what is the studio experience like? Now, this is for some, for us studio nerds. Does everybody get one mic, or did you do like the Temptations where there's 3 mics and two people per mic? How does that go? Or does it depend on the sound that you want?
So we knew from the very beginning that we wanted to have as much control of the sound as possible.
All right.
So why have 6 parts and all this intricate harmony if you weren't going to have 6 microphones?
There you go.
So that's the way we've always recorded.
Okay.
And typically we will everybody will be in the studio except for the bass. And we'll be in kind of a semicircle, but far enough away so that as we're singing, we get the least amount of what we call bleed.
Right.
Which would be my microphone being recorded onto your microphone, while we're both singing. So we've always done that. And the reason why we don't have the bass in there is 2 or 3-fold. One is because a lot of times he's doing different rhythms. And if he's doing that while you're singing, he's going to be on your microphone or on your track.
Because
the other thing is,
that makes sense. I get it.
The other thing is because his wavelength is so wide, you want to have extra control over what it is he's doing.
I have a quick question about Alvin. So, of course, he sings bass. There's a song you guys did on the Take 6 album. Oh, gosh. I had it. I forgot the name of it. But it's about the resurrection and, what was the name of that song?
Sunday's on the Way?
Sunday's on the Way. That one. There's a part towards the end of the song where he just keeps going lower and lower and lower and lower. How deep is his speaking voice? I've never actually heard him speak. But is he? Because I know some people have a natural voice that's, and they can sing deeply without their voice necessarily not being that deep. But he's a pretty big dude, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. So I'm 6'2", probably 210 pounds. Alvin's about 6'2". And let's say, without giving it away, he's much bigger than me.
Okay.
We'll say that. But going back to his voice, like when you hear me speak, I have a low speaking voice.
You do.
Alvin's voice is lower than mine naturally, and it's wide.
Yeah.
It takes up a lot of space. So imagine him already speaking like that. His singing voice is huge and it's low.
Because he actually, even though I play drums, play saxophone, but there's a bass guitar behind me because for some reason I naturally gravitate to the bass. I love the bass. That's the first thing I hear in any piece of music is the bass generally. Because, being a drummer, we lock in with each other. If I'm playing with a group, I'm usually locked in with the bass player. And that was the first time I think I recognized bass just period, because I kept hearing them go down almost to the point where my speakers couldn't catch it because they had a little JVC stereo that I was playing. And I was like, what is he doing? I sat up when that song came on at that part, and I was like, what is he doing? How low is he going to go? And he just kept going lower and lower and lower. And I just thought it was amazing. And I wanted to ask you just how deep is his voice, but you've confirmed that his voice is actually deeper than yours. You're a tenor.
Oh, yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah. So I sing the first tenor in Take 6, which is, the top high part. But when I started the group, I wanted to sing bass in this group because I can sing bass, but I don't sing nearly as low as Alvin, not with the same conviction, let's say.
Right.
But at the time when I started the group, no one else was comfortable singing the first tenor. So because I grew up listening to Earth, Wind & Fire and the Doobie Brothers and Steely Dan and Ambrosia and all these groups that had, tenors and DeBarge and stuff, I was like, that's where I want to be. So that's where I gravitated towards.
That's funny you mentioned all those groups. So I have a fairly decent following on TikTok. And most of it came because those groups, that's my playlist. Ambrosia, Doobie Brothers, Earth, Wind and Fire, The Barge, Switch,
Oh yeah.
just all of them. And so all of my audience is going to know exactly who you're talking about because Ambrosia is one of my favorite groups. I love them. I love them.
And we know David Pack pretty well.
Do you really?
Who's that guy?
He is.
Really, really good guy. Good guy. He and Michael McDonald. Those are my dudes, man.
Great. They're such great writers, man. They're such great writers and musicians. Oh my gosh. Oh, real quick, just off subject. Have you met Toto? The guys from Toto?
Sure. A few of them. Yeah. So
Also
when you're
great
in this
musicians.
business, especially as long as we've been in it and the people that we've worked with, there's always like 1 or 2 degrees of separation from everybody else.
Right. Everybody knows
so, yeah.
somebody that you, out of all the groups, not all the groups, but the people that you've worked with, is there a favorite, without saying anybody's the worst, I'm not getting into that stuff, but is there a favorite?
It kind of changes from day to day, or when I think about it, because working with Quincy Jones the very first time was amazing. We worked with him numerous times. Working with Stevie Wonder, amazing. Don Henley, amazing. We worked with Dr. Dre fairly recently. That was incredible.
Wait a minute. Is that something you can talk about?
Well, the thing about Dre is he will record stuff just to have. He came and saw us when we were in Hawaii at the Blue Note Jazz Club there.
Okay.
And we hung out all night at his studio there, and he was playing all these different tracks for us. And then he brought us into the studio in LA, and we recorded 3 or 4 things. I don't know if they'll ever come out, whatever, but the experience was crazy. Because, quite honestly, we're used to certain kinds of producers when it comes to jazz and R&B and stuff. So we didn't know what to expect from Dre. And I tell you, he knows his stuff. He knows exactly what he wants. He knows chord structures, all of that. And it was an amazing experience.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, so let's go back to, let's say, your childhood. Where'd you grow up?
So I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and then my family moved to Buffalo. So my formative years were pretty much in Buffalo, New York, and that's where my grandparents lived. And so we grew up singing in the church choir there because my grandfather was the choir director. So that's where I personally learned harmonies and even how to have and put together and keep together a group, because I used to watch him and how he really was able to have a command over people. And I was like, one day that's what I want to do. So Buffalo, New York. Then we moved to Orlando, and that's where I graduated from high school.
Okay. And did you play any sports?
Oh, of course, man.
Basketball.
Of course. I played basketball, football, baseball. We played hockey when we lived in Buffalo. So all the sports. I still play basketball 2 or 3 times a week, even with all this white hair. Nobody knows my name when I go on the court. They're always, "Oh, gee, you want to play?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want to play."
And you see, I'm happy for you that you're still able to play. My knees are shot. Basketball was my sport. I cannot play it anymore. I suffer after I play basketball, so I quit.
Yeah, so people always ask me, like almost every day, "Man, what's your secret?" And I say, "Don't stop. Don't stop, because once you do, now trust me." So I have knee issues too. I've had arthroscopic surgery twice on my left knee.
Same.
Yeah, and so then you don't grow new cartilage.
You don't. It's funny you say that, because my last surgery, which was 2 years ago, I had cartilage replacement. I had cartilage transfer surgery. Yeah.
So it didn't, or did you try to get back on the court too quickly?
No, that's how I entered it, trying to get back onto the court too quickly. Tore the cartilage, had to get a transfer. It took a year, an entire year for it to recover, because cartilage doesn't produce blood naturally, so it takes forever for it to heal. And I just kind of, after the end, it kind of like, my motivation kind of left. So I was like, Yeah,
so it's a weird thing. So then you know the drill. You know that basketball is one of those sports where, like, you can run. Yeah. You can do all other things to stay in shape, but there's basketball shape, which is a completely different thing.
It's a completely different thing. It's the stopping I have a problem with. Yep,
I can start. It is the stopping.
I can run fast in the straight line.
Or the landing.
Yes.
Yep.
And then you brace yourself. If you try to jump, you just brace yourself and say, "Oh, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good."
So then your body starts telling you, don't do this, don't do that. And once you stop doing certain things, you find out, oh, I can't do that anymore.
Man, I have had so many conversations with my friends about this because a lot of them didn't have any kind of surgeries. I have arthritis in both knees now.
Yeah.
You might not. I'm 45. Well, I'll be 45 Friday. And
Okay.
my knees.
So I had my first surgery, I think, when I was 45.
Oh, did you?
And my second one 3 years later.
My
So,
first
yeah.
My first was when I was, and we're getting out the subject of music, but who cares?
It's all right, man.
I had my first major surgery when I was 15. I fractured my fibia, tibia, and tore my meniscus all at one time playing basketball. And then had my second surgery 2 years ago, and that was the one. They both took at least a year for me to come back from. But this one, my brain was like, you know what? Just slow down, just a little bit. Just slow down, just a little.
It's the brain. It's the brain. It tells your body not to do certain things, and then your body says, "Okay, we're not doing it anymore."
Yeah.
And it almost becomes impossible, which is crazy. The mind-body connection.
It is, and I would tell you right now, you just motivated me to move more because I'm also a personal trainer, but I don't do the things that I love to do. I do what I have to do now, just to get up and move. At least you know what I feel.
Hey, man. So the fountain of youth is that thing that for me, I am constantly trying to find it. I'm 61 now.
Yeah.
And I'm in good shape. Were it not for this left knee.
Yeah. Same.
But I keep it strong. I keep the muscles around that knee to where they need to go because what's happening, and you know this as a trainer, is you have an area that is injured. So your muscles always want to shut down around it.
Yes, they do.
And so because of that, you have to always stay in some kind of rehab mode if you want to continue doing the things that you want to do. But in doing that, you could be doing more damage, of course.
It's the balance.
So it's the balance of stuff. So
balance.
with me, if I play ball enough, things are good. If I play too much, things are bad. If I don't play enough at all, things are bad.
Things are bad. Yeah. I think once I had that second one, I was scared. It scared me. And so I said, you know what? I'll ride a bike. So what I did was I bought a bike and I said, I'll just ride my bike just to make sure I keep that strength in my leg. To keep it moving, keep it fluid. So the basketball thing. So now I just watch it. I watch.
Oh, man.
I watch.
See, I'm not there yet, but whoo, man, it may be coming.
I'm happy for you. I'm happy you can still do it. I'm happy for you. No. I am so happy for you. Getting back to music. Yeah. You said that you were listening to Earth, Wind and Fire and all these bands growing up. Growing up in the church, how were you allowed to listen to what we call secular music back then? So yes, I was allowed, or did you sneak it?
No. We were allowed. My parents were very, very progressive, even though the church that we grew up in is very conservative.
So was mine. Yeah.
So I believe because my grandfather had the choir and he listened to a lot of easy listening music and jazz and stuff, I think that's what got my mom in that realm of being able to have that kind of music. So we had all these eclectic albums growing up. Right. I mean, everything from Nat King Cole to James Cleveland, back in the day, to Herbie Hancock and his Headhunters album and the OJs and Johnny Mathis. We had all of this stuff. So we listened to a lot of different stuff. So we were never in a position of, you can't listen to that. So it was cool for us.
Oh, it was so not cool for us. My oldest sister is 12 years older than I am.
Okay.
And she didn't live with me, but she would come over to the house on like the weekends. And my parents both worked factory jobs. So we wouldn't see them for, a day or two if they just end up on the same shift. And my sister would come over and we would have to clean the house on the weekends. And that was our secular music time where we could turn on Soul Train, or we could turn up what we call the hi-fi. I don't know if you know what that is, right?
Yes, sir.
But the 8-track player, the record player, and the radio.
Come on, man, I'm older than you.
I know,
we absolutely had all of that.
I don't know what everybody called
We had the Curtis Mathis hi-fi that had a TV in it. It had a record player and an 8-track.
Yours was funny.
Yep.
My dad, he's still alive. He still has it. I don't know if it works, but he still has it.
Now it's a piece of furniture.
Yeah, it's a piece of furniture, and now his newest TV is sitting on top of it now. Mm-hmm. And I need to ask him. I might ask him tomorrow. I'm gonna go see him tomorrow. I'm gonna ask him if it still works. But because I didn't, some people didn't call it the hi-fi. I didn't know if that was regional or southern or something, but that's what we called it. Mm-hmm. And only thing we could listen to, I was telling you before we started recording, was my dad was a big Otis Redding fan, and my mom liked Al Green. So it was one of those two. There was no Marvin Gaye, no Stevie Wonder. We either have to listen to them two, or it was gospel. And so on Saturdays,
which is funny because Al Green had some stuff back in the day.
Oh, he did.
Wait a minute.
I'm gonna get to you on that. Hold on. So that's going to tie into my next question. And so when my sister would come over, we would, clean the house. And that's when she would take over because she was the oldest. She could drive and she could smoke. But she couldn't smoke in the house, but she would turn on the radio and we'd turn on the Soul Train line. And that's where I got most of my music from, was that. And then, my Ambrosia stuff was from those Time Life TV commercials. And I never forgot them. And so when I was old enough to get them, I went back and started downloading everything, with LimeWire and Napster and all that stuff.
Right.
And so that brings me to this part with Take 6, because you guys were pretty progressive at the time you were coming out. And like you were saying, Al Green with the Everything's Going to Be All Right, that song, he started to kind of shift into what was a secular sound. And I remember my mom wouldn't let me listen to that because of how secular it sounded, even though he was talking about Jesus coming back. But did you guys face any pushback from your sound being so, modern?
We faced a ton of pushback from the school that we were associated with at the time. Because remember, I told you, maybe I didn't mention this. So Oakwood University is a church school.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's a very conservative school.
Okay.
At least it was back then. And I believe what happened, because we've talked about this over the years and we still talk about it, is the interesting thing about extended chords and jazz in general is people, for some reason, will get with rock. They'll get with R&B, they get with a lot of things, but they don't get with jazz. And they'll start talking about things like the devil's chords and all these kinds of things and stuff. Because I think with jazz, and specifically close harmony music, there's a lot of dissonance.
Right.
And for your audience, people who may not know what that is, it's where you have major chords which sound happy. You have minor chords which have a sadness to them. Then you have diminished chords and other chords that are extensions of chords that can sound scary to some people.
Right.
And I think what ends up happening is when you don't know what something is, you tend to think it's bad or you're afraid of it.
And that's how it was being, growing up in such a religious home, is that they didn't understand the music. And if it didn't say Jesus, God, but if it still had the same message, but it didn't say those things, it didn't matter as long as they didn't say Jesus directly. It was like, no, this is not of the church or of God. And so I was wondering about that. But how did you smooth it over, or did you?
So we didn't. I think what happened was, and see, this is the crazy part. Is remember I said that showcase, we got signed by Warner Brothers Nashville.
Which is a major...
Yes, it's a major label, but it was the country music division. We had invited the Christian music people.
Right.
So I think that's what has happened in our career, is that Christians have always thought we were something else. The people who like something else think we're Christian. So we've always been this entity that is somewhere in between.
Right.
And so for us, we've always just done the kind of music that floats our boat. We're church boys. So underneath everything we do, there's going to be some kind of positive message,
Right.
even in the straight up secular songs we sing. We're never going to be singing about stuff that if you ask us in an interview, so why'd you do that song? You're never going to hear us say, well, there's always got to be a reason for the song.
Exactly.
So I think that we've always been this entity that you can't really pigeonhole because people have always thought we were something else. And I think that because of that, we've just been able to do what feels right for us.
Okay. And that affords you a lot of freedom too, as long as people aren't hounding you about, hey, you need to sound like this, you need to do this.
Right. And again, since we were signed to the country music division, they never assigned a producer for us. They never brought songs that they thought we should be doing. In fact, that gentleman was like, I want to sign because I love the music. And if we sell 25,000 copies, I'm great. That first album has sold well over 2 million copies.
Talk about the return on the investment.
Exactly. But he never told us what to do, how to do it. He was like, I like what you guys do. Do that.
That's different because usually labels, they like to control everything.
Which I think is also a testament to the fact that if we had done that showcase in LA or New York or anywhere else, that may have been the case. There may have been somebody who would have been like, okay, I dig what you're doing, but I need you to change this. Don't say this. Here's a song that I want you to do, blah, 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 blah.
And here's my producer, this, and this. And you might have been having to use instruments or something. You might have had a band back you up or something like that.
Exactly. Wow. So I believe, again, I think this was God's timing and his way of showing this is how I want you to be introduced to the world.
Okay. Well, man, who inspires you now? Are you listening to any new artists now that inspire anybody you like that's, say, the last 10 years who's, that's come out that you listen to now?
So I think Jacob Collier. I have to say him off the top of my head.
That dude is a genius.
Yeah, we've known Jacob for 10, 11 years or so, and he's only about 27, 28 now.
He was a prodigy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he is the present and the future when it comes to musicality. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that he's working with so many amazing artists who are also really into him.
Can I tell you one little funny thing I saw him doing? Because I follow him. I follow him because he's an amazing musician. This guy's worked with Herbie Hancock and Quincy Jones, and like you said, he's only 20 something. But I saw him. He was writing a song and he was playing it for another pop artist named Shawn Mendes. And he was letting Shawn listen to the song in 2021. And then he fast forwarded the video where Kirk Franklin was recording the song. In 2022, and I was like, this dude is working with everybody, because I've seen him with you guys on the video, and I've seen him with just some of everybody. But yeah, he is amazing.
Yeah, he's otherworldly.
Yeah,
and he grew up listening to Take Six and a lot of all of the stuff that you and I have talked about already. Right. He knows all of that stuff. And again, what I tell young artists is listen to everything. Listen to everybody who came before you. That's history.
It is, yes.
That's how you forge who you are, and can build upon. And I think what Jacob has done expertly is take the things that he's heard and twist them and stand them on their head and go to a creative level that most people, I'm saying almost no one, can do.
Yeah, and I would tell my audience, go listen to Jacob Collier and then go listen to Take Six. You will hear some similarities. Now, most of it is like with the chord structures and everything, where he's using a lot of diminished stuff and dissonance and everything. Because some of the stuff he has people singing, these groups, because I'll see him just do a pop-up and he'll direct a choir or something and he'll give them parts, and all of a sudden I'm like, wow. Are these chords do these chords even exist? But you know what? That makes sense. That would make sense that you would be listening to him. He is something else.
There's another young kid named Justin Schultz.
The guy, he plays everything.
Yes.
Gosh,
Young guy. I think he might be 16 now.
Yeah.
There's another little kid, like, I think his name is Miles. He's like 7 years old. There's so many kids
that
out
produces,
there now.
He makes his own beats. I follow it.
Yes.
Justin is something. Justin Lee Schultz is, and his sister plays the bass and the drums, and his dad plays what, the guitar?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Justin plays the bass, the drums, the saxophone, the keyboards. I don't even know what his actual instrument is.
Right.
Because he's so good at everything. But yeah.
So I get asked that kind of question all the time. And I think a lot of times people ask me questions because they think that Take Six has done so much and we're going to kind of poo-poo on the industry now and stuff. I'm like, no, there's no shortage of creativity.
No, because if you love music, you love music regardless of where it comes from. Yeah.
And these kids are really doing it.
Yeah. How do you feel about social media now? Whereas, I see that smile. Whereas back then, everything was kind of, everything wasn't put on display. But I kind of have, because I grew up in an era without it, and I'm not too far ahead of the era where it, is prevalent. But everybody can put everything. Do you have an appreciation for it now, being that you're a prominent musician and artist?
So I think social media is like anything. I think it's a superpower that can be used for good or for evil.
That's it.
I think it's a necessary thing now, where to get noticed, you have to have some kind of presence on social media. But again, if it's a superpower, then do it in ways that are constructive and that help build the brand that you're looking at having, whether that's being a musician or an influencer or whatever. But don't make that be the be all end all.
Right.
Everything you do, what that's said or whatever, may not need to be on social media. And I think that's a thing. Again, with everything is a balance, right? That's what we've been talking about in this whole interview. Balance.
It's definitely
myself included. There are times when there are things that I may post, I'm like, I'm not really sure why I felt I needed to do that.
I get it. I get it. Well, I must say, this was amazing just to hear from someone who I looked up to. Well, I still look up to. You and Take Six have molded some of my musicality in my brain. You guys, I listen to you so much just because I was amazed by what your voices could do. You hear people saying they can do runs and have all these notes, but to hear a group come together and sound like a piano chord was always amazing to me. And Mr. McKnight, I just want to thank you so much for coming on this podcast. You don't know how much this means to me. I appreciate it so much.
Well, it's my pleasure, man. You reached out, and I was like, I had to peep your page and whatnot. I was like, okay, all right, we can do this. And here's the other thing. I'll be honest with you. A lot of people reach out, and a lot of times I will not respond for whatever reason. So you caught me at a good time. It's been a really cool interview, and I appreciate your spirit and your energy.
Let me tell you something funny. I'll tell you something funny. I was watching you live. So I was watching you live when I reached out. You were playing, I think, an Earth, Wind, and Fire song at the time. I think that's what the song that was playing. And I was trying to time you because you were doing something to the side, and then you come back in and you do something to the side. I don't know what you were doing because it was off camera. And I said, let me see if I can time this message to see if I can get him to look at it. So I was like, okay, he looked away. It's been about 10 seconds. Let me type it now. Send. And I thought you missed it, and then I saw you look down, and I was like, oh, he saw it. And just the fact that you responded, that was enough. You could have said, nah, man, I ain't doing that. And I'd be like, oh, thanks. I appreciate it. But just the fact that you responded, that speaks to your character. And I want to thank you again. Thank you so much for all the music, all the people you have inspired through your music, Mr. McKnight. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. Keep doing it, man.
Thank you, sir. Listening audience, this has been the 910 Opinion. I've been your host, Willie D. And we are out of here.